what spreads the fastest is negativity. Okay, people just spread negativity like you can't believe. You'll hardly get anybody spreading a positive story.
People say, I want to make a lot of money now and retire. And you realize that actually making a lot of money can be boring because you don't have challenges and stuff to do. Okay, welcome back to Off the Clock. Today we have Tony, a very good friend of mine, to kind of share his very special life story, which I, convinced him, encouraged him to share it because, when we had coffee with Tony, he just said, I'm just a regular guy. It's just a regular story. To me and my son, this is a very special story that we want to hear and the experience that I'm sure it will end up in some places. So, Tony, do you want to introduce yourself the way you like?
Yeah, that's great.
Maybe more dramatized way or whatever way you like to
Yeah,
off the clock.
yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for having me. I think it's quite a nice thing. Never really been involved in these before. But I think just as an intro, I think, I don't like to introduce myself as an MD or a CEO of a business. I think it's more of just an entrepreneur. And importantly, just to, what I enjoy is making a difference in people's lives, be it on a business level or personal level. I think I've helped set up a lot of businesses with people that were thinking about going into business, gave them ideas, help them, in terms of business building. So I think for me, the intro is just Tony Farah and just an entrepreneur, and that's it.
Okay. Great. So, you look like in a very good shape. It looks like you eating well, vegetables, healthy stuff, and hopefully sleeping very well and not stressed or depressed or having any issues. On average, how many hours of sleep do you do a night?
Yeah, look, I've got a very good balance in terms of that. I mean, I train six times a week.
Oh, okay.
So I run and cycle 3 days running, 3 days cycling. I generally leave the office at 3:30 every day. I get there 7:30, I leave at 3:30, enough time to get home and train. And then I aim for about 8 hours sleep a night. So that's just the way my body has become accustomed to it, because I get up at about 5 every morning. So I'm in bed generally between 9:30 and 10.
Wow, I'm jealous. That sounds like a proper, work-life balance that we talk about here at Off the Clock. Like 3:30 you out.
Yeah.
You put on your shades, chairs when the sun is still going down.
That's it.
Going home to my wife and kids.
Get home, say hello to the family, cycle or
kiss
run.
Everybody, prepare, get into the cycling gear or gym gear.
That's it.
Mahlatse, that's I never had. We've done probably about 40 CEO interviews. I never had anybody with that level of balance and sleeping well.
I think the important thing, I've always looked at what is the purpose of working. To me, working's not about just going there and making money. The purpose of working is to keep your family happy. If you're happy and you achieve things, you got to come back and have a good family life. So from when I first started working after varsity, and I started at Alexander Forbes, I would leave there 4 o'clock. I'd get there 6:30, 4 o'clock I'd be out. People were working until 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then you go home, you sleep, you wake up 4 hours later, you go to work. To me, that's, you're not put on the earth just to work. You've got a bigger purpose. If you're going to do a good job, I believe you'll stick out wherever you are if you do a good job and you're honest.
Yeah.
If you're going to prove that you do a good job by working 16 hours a day, there's something wrong. If you can't achieve your job and your allocated hours, then you're spending too much time talking to people. You're not really working. Because if you think about it, from when you get to work and put your computer on to when you take it off and go home, it's such a long period of time. There's a lot of hours in the day. But if you're going to go talk to every person and you're going to go and have a cigarette and have coffee and go for a 4-hour lunch break, that's when the day becomes short. So that's just my view. And it's a view that I've stuck with for the last 26, 27 odd years that I've been working.
Okay.
So
maybe Mahlatse can learn some lessons there on
I mean, I feel like I've already not have already adopted that mindset, but like I've already been thinking in that way, because it's like I don't see the point. Like, and it's also to what Tony was saying, is that you're not just put on this earth to work. Plus, if you're going to work and you have to work 16 hours a day or until 11 p.m., then there's no balance there, and then there's also something wrong. Just with that model alone of, then I must get home probably like at 12 or 11:30, sleep, 4 or 5 hours just to wake up and come back here again.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, to me, using your own words, Dad, it just sounds like a scam.
And don't get me wrong, there's an odd occasion where I would work, at night. I've got a deadline, I've got a big presentation, I've got something I need to do. I get home while I'm cycling, I think, I forgot to do something for tomorrow. When I finish cycling, I don't stop while I'm cycling. When I finish, I'll get off the bike, have a shower, then I'll go and do it. So, you've got to be flexible enough to say, well, I'm not going to just stick to those hours. But generally, I would say 95% of the time, that's the way that I've run my life. Because you don't know when you're going to die. If you knew when there's going to be your last minute on earth, then that would be fantastic. But you don't want to spend your whole life working, and then you die when you just put up your feet to retire, and then you've missed out on your whole life. So to me, I've never been a person that takes life for granted. I think partly because of my upbringing, partly because I'm just a person that loves life. To me, you're given one life and you've got to really enjoy it.
So go ahead.
So how does that, especially like with the working hours mindsets and everything, how is that impacted? I don't want to say impacted the people around you, but like, what is the perception of them around you when they see you leaving at, let's say, 3:30 or 4, and they are the people that are staying there to work until like 9:30?
Well, I force my staff to go home. So I tell my staff, because that's a very good question, because if you're a person not confident in what you're doing, and you don't do your job, and then someone passes a comment when you leave, then it affects you. But if you're pulling your own weight, you're achieving what you got to achieve during the day, if someone passes a comment, I tell them, come challenge me. Let's go sit down tomorrow. Because as a leader, you also encourage people to challenge you. So let's go sit down tomorrow, and then you spend one day with me. If you achieve 10% of what I've done in that day, then you can leave at 1 o'clock every day. And I've gone and sat down with my staff, and I've put them through the challenge. And I've sat down with them and proved to them, that I do everything I need to do. The business ticks over. I'm paying you a salary. I achieve all my targets when I'm meant to do that. You talking, you're having lunch, you're going out, you're coming back late. That's why you got to work late. But I told them, I don't want you to work late. To me, if you're working here until 12 o'clock at night, and you come and you tell me that, I don't think it's fantastic. You should be going home at 4 o'clock. When you get to work at 7, you leave at 3:30. You should be leaving at 3:30. I don't want to be the reason why you get divorced. I don't want to be the reason why your children grow up not knowing their parents. To me, you come do your job, you go home. If you feel you're overworked, let's sit down and understand it. It's not about guilt. You're not there to prove to people that you're doing your job. It's about between me and the employee. What everybody else thinks, that's their own insecurities. They must come in, talk to me about it, and I'll help them, because work's not about proving yourself to people that don't take control of your life and your career. And to me, it all boils down to confidence. If you're self-assured and you're confident you're achieving what you got to do and you're honest about it, that's a perception that your people will start to know. It's worked for me for 25 years, and I think it's because if I got up at Forbes and I left at 4 o'clock and I got funny looks, I would say my work's on time. I haven't missed the deadline. When you're downstairs talking in the canteen for 3 hours, I'm here doing minutes, I'm binding agenda packs. So if you're in my industry, you know what that is. Okay, but that's the part that takes up time. But I'm there, I'm getting my work out, and that's the way it is. So I think it's more on your own perception and whether you feel confident that you've done your job.
You said earlier you love life. You don't know when you're going to die. Are you religious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very religious. I don't go to church every weekend, because I got a daughter that rows, and everybody that follows rowing knows you don't have a life because of rowing. But when we do go, we generally do go to church, and I do definitely believe in God, and I believe in a higher power, and I've had things in my life that have proved that to me. So that's why I do believe in God.
So with all in mind, you sound like a family man. How did you meet your wife?
We've actually, sure, it's a long, very long story. I mean, you know a bit of my background when I arrived from Lebanon in 1985.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But
Yeah, so I met my wife actually very shortly after that. You know,
just
so,
some more details on.
so yeah, we actually met at school. I actually was good friends with her cousin, was my best friend at school, primary school. Met her.
Primary
she was,
school?
Yeah.
Ice
Yeah.
cream together?
Not exactly. Just talking, getting to know each other. I went to high school. He went to a different high school. She came to the same high school as me. We were good friends through high school and started dating at university. She was still in high school. So,
Okay.
because she's about 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
So we dated 9.5 years before we got married. Now we've been married,
You
since
said how many years you dated?
9.5 years.
Wow, that's a long time. What
Yeah.
were you trying to find out? I mean, like,
While I was young, eh? I still had to get a degree and find a job and still had to earn money before So then we've been married now since 2004, so it's 20 years.
wow, yeah, that's
Yeah.
we're staying in. Yeah, maybe I mean you can let us in your story when you left Lebanon to South Africa. I mean that's epic. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah, my father died overseas. So then we had a big family. I mean, there's my mother and 10 children. I was the youngest. This is in 85. So middle of the civil war in Lebanon. Well, it was pretty much a war with everybody, not just a civil war. So the airport opened up and we were in a small village outside of Beirut. So we had a couple of days to get to the airport, which normally, I don't know if you know Lebanon, but it's smaller than the Kruger Park.
Yeah, I've been there.
So we had a couple of days, a window of opportunity to get out of the country and really fly.
You're saying
to
the
wherever.
airport was opening twice a
2
week?
days, yeah.
What, Wednesday and Friday?
So I don't remember the exact days. I was just, I think 7.
Okay.
So the airport opened up and we went in a taxi first and then got put into the back of an army truck because there were a lot of roadblocks along the way.
Yeah.
That's what took time. So you had different roadblocks with different armies and militias and all sorts of funny things.
Yeah.
And eventually got to the airport and then flew to South Africa. So landed in the middle of
business
winter.
class?
So you had business class. Yeah. we were the chickens in the coops. No. But it was, landed in South Africa in June, July 1985. Dressed in summer in Lebanon, gotcha, in shorts and vests. And I think it was 2 rand we had to pay at the airport for, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember exact details, but so to go and beg for 2 rand to pay to get into the country. And then, I just started in South Africa. We had a Lebanese family that put us up in a little semi-detached house in Boysens. I don't know if you know where Boysens is.
Yeah, Boysens, downtown Joburg.
Yeah. It's kind of...
as you go towards Southgate.
That's on the left-hand
Soweto,
side,
yeah.
opposite Gold Reef City.
Yes, they're right there. Yeah.
So we got put up in a house there. Well, we first lived with a Lebanese priest, a Catholic priest, for 2 months before she put us up in this house.
Okay.
We went and lived in that house there until my sisters were much older than me, my older brother, and then they got a job, and then we bought a house out in Eden Glen.
But that time you're still 10 kids together?
Yeah. When we flew over, we split. So some of the family flew Egypt Air, some flew different airlines, and we kind of met back in Johannesburg. And then when my sisters were old enough to work, they bought a house for us in Eden Glen, and we all moved into that house. As my sisters got older, some moved out and some stayed there, and just went to Eden Glen High and just Eden Glen Primary, Eden Glen High, and stayed there, and that's when I met my wife in high school.
So you grew up in the south?
Well, just for about 2 years.
Okay.
Then we moved to Eden Glen. And then settled in Eden Glen, and then that was it. I was the only fortunate one in my family to get a university degree. The rest didn't really get qualifications. They all kind of worked for businesses, and now they're all self-employed. COVID kind of decimated my family, so I lost 3 sisters during COVID. I had an older brother
2001 too?
Yeah, 2002.
Sorry about that.
No, it's part of life, there's nothing you can do. Then I had an older brother that died of a heart attack at 39. That was 22 years ago. So now I've just got 2 sisters and a brother left.
Well, four of you?
Yeah.
So, quick question. when you guys were leaving Lebanon, what were the options of like where to go?
Well, I mean, I remember my mom died years ago. She died, I think I was married a year and my mother died, so she never really met my kids. But so she told me bits and pieces. You're kind of young and you don't remember much things. But I know the two options were Canada and South Africa. The only reason why, because that's where my mom applied for.
Okay.
I don't quite know under what visas she applied for, but effectively Canada and South Africa were the two countries, and South Africa accepted us first. So we ended up in South Africa. And that's where we just kind of stayed. And there was a big Lebanese community in South Africa at that point in time. So in the south of Johannesburg, and that's where we got helped out and then moved to Eden Glen and just stayed there.
Okay.
So it was kind of by default, it wasn't really a concerted decision to say, okay, well, we're going to go to South Africa. So that's kind of how it followed.
So do you feel like a real self-made man?
Well, I mean, I've never really looked at it from that point of view. I was looking at myself as a person that had certain goals and dreams, based purely on, things that I saw in my life with people around me. So I had a friend that lived in Eden Glen. I went to his house when I was about 9, and there was a Porsche parked next door, and I said to him, when I get older, I want to drive a Porsche. And I remember he was like, kind of like, yeah, but that's only rich people do that. And I was like, okay, and then I said to my mother, I want to have a double-story house, a super bike, and a Porsche.
Okay. How old?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I think I must have been about 11, 10.
DreamWorks.
So yeah, so and that's I mean, to me it was. But the weird thing is, I never thought of not achieving it.
I mean, I know you've got a Porsche. Do you have a super bike?
I had one. I sold it when I got children. So I bought my super bike. I got a double-story house. So I got the dream.
So why did you sell the bike?
Like, I was out riding the one day in the 2010 World Cup when they were doing renovations on the road.
The highway.
Yeah, and I was coming back from Pretoria on the bike, and I was doing quite a speed, and I hit one of the bumps in the road. And the bike went airborne, and everybody braked, and I pushed brakes. And obviously, when the air, your brakes don't work. So kind of landed and just went between two cars and rode home slowly, got home, and I said to my wife, I think it's time to sell the bike. And that's when I started cycling. So, and the interesting thing is I've injured myself more cycling than on the superbike. I never came off once on the superbike. Cycling, I've been in hospital, I got concussed, I got stitches, knocked my front tooth out. So should have kept the superbike.
The superbike is more of a definitive injury.
Yeah, I think that's a difference. If you come off doing 200, you're not going to have a tooth left. So
your body's gonna get acquainted with the ground.
Yeah, so that's the difference. So that's, and I mean, like I was saying to you, I've never really thought that I wouldn't achieve that. It's just the way that I'm built. I think, I've always told my wife, if you really believe in something, you can do it. And I don't.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, that's why she always says to me, I'm a Walt Disney, because Walt Disney, without me even knowing, he says if you dream it, you can do it. So she always says, because to me, that's the way life is. Life makes you negative. It's harder to be positive than negative. If you even think in a workplace, what spreads the fastest? It's negativity. Okay, people just spread negativity like you can't believe. You'll hardly get anybody spreading a positive story. Okay, but negative. You go and you say one thing to a person that's negative, before you know it, the whole office is in a note. But if you say one thing that's good, nobody hears about it. And that's what life does to you. You pick up the newspaper, you read it's all negative, 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 negative. You never see anything good. And unfortunately, that's human beings' fault. That's the way human beings are. I think if you start thinking of a positive story and you really believe you can do it, why can't you do it? Why can't you achieve things if you really put your mind to it and you believe you're going to do it? You might get hiccups in the way and you might get this, but to me, the end goal is what you're working towards. It's not about the people telling you can't do it. Because when you want to go open up a business, if you want to finance something, you got every bank telling you can't get finance because you don't have a track record. Okay, they're telling you can't work. Okay, that's what they're really saying to you. Okay, you put a good business plan together, they look at it, and all they're trained to do is be negative. They're just trained to spot risks. Okay, not one person is going to sit there and say to you, you know what, I actually like what you're presenting. Let me give you the money that you need. Okay, because that's the way, again, human beings are. So I think of my wife's school. I mean, when we wanted to open up the school, I mean, it's also got to do with my daughter. We couldn't find a good school for her.
So special needs.
Yeah, special needs. So I said to my wife, you're a teacher, you're teaching at England Primary, leave and let's open up a school. You know, and then there's always 500 reasons why it won't work. You know, you're not a special needs qualified teacher. All that she did, a part of a degree was special needs. You need a location, you need rights, and all these different reasons why it won't work. And I said to her, okay, you know what, whenever you want to open up a business, I believe in using banks' money, because your own money you can use for other opportunities. So we went to a bank, wrote a business plan. I did a lot of research on it. All these banks said, no, we don't support startups like this. It's too risky. There's schools popping up all over the place. It's just not going to work. So I said to her, you know what, let's self-fund then. We found a very good property in Edenvale that it was really run down. Took her there. She didn't really see the bigger picture. I saw something in the property, so we put in an offer.
Renovator's dream.
put in an offer, and we worked there over December to get it ready for January. So the day before the school opened, we were painting the classroom, and she had 4 children, my daughter being one of them. That stage, I mean, it was kind of something that we identified as a need, okay, and it was there to help children because those children get neglected. There's not a lot of schools that offer speciality type of teaching. So we focused on that, and now she's got close to 60 children in the school. She employs 15 people. It's into its 13th year, all self-funded. And the same banks that said, no, we're not interested, they now are coming to us.
They want their account.
Now they want their account. And I've told 1 or 2 of them, you said, no, this, and that's the way life is. It's sad, but that's the way life is, So to me, you got to back yourself, and hopefully people will see that in you one day and give you an opportunity. If they don't give you an opportunity, go create your own opportunities.
Yeah, self-belief, right?
Yeah. So, and even if you look at sport, I mean, it's to me, I'm a very sporty person, but sport mentally, okay, sports, you get to a certain level with sportsmen, in my view. I'm not a professional sportsman, but in my view, when you get to that certain upper echelon of sportsmen, okay, they're all conditioned, they're all athletes, they're all super fit, they all eat properly, they're all at the peak of their game. What makes a difference at the end? It's that mental belief. You often talk about the South African cricket team, okay. I mean, they've all got the same talent, they've all got the same background, the same, in terms of physique I'm talking, okay, not where they come from, but in terms of their training, their body. So what makes, at the end of the day, it's your belief. If you go in there and you 50-50, am I going to win, am I going to lose, you're going to go in and say, I'm going to win. It's the same in business. I think business and sport are very similar.
Yeah,
and sport and life's very similar.
Yeah, it just remind me the movie Any Given Sunday. I don't know if you remember that. Al Pacino giving kind of a team talk, driving them, revving them up about, it's all about that will to achieve. It's about the inches, and the inches are amongst us, they're around us. So, somebody who's really wanting to do it. It's,
100%.
And you think about, times where, things were tough and you really pushed in life, and it's been about that willpower that makes the difference.
That's why I compare life to sport, because sport, you're going ahead, you got a goal, you get injured. Okay, life's the same, you get knocked back. So sports, at that point in time, you can give up, or you can rehabilitate yourself, you can go back and train and get fit and carry on towards your goal, or you can quit. Same thing with life. Business, normal life, it's all on how you perceive things and how you, in my view, how you want to get towards the goal that you set for yourself. I must be honest, I'm not a big reader of motivational books, or I don't listen to a lot of psychology, and I don't do, which is very odd. I mean, I'm just not a person that doesn't really do that. So it's just all kind of my own beliefs and views, and a lot of people will disagree with me because sometimes I can be a bit extreme in my views, but I just look at what's worked for me in life, and I see it now in my children, especially my younger daughter. I see with her that how many people want you to fail rather than succeed. In her sport, in her schoolwork, but the minute you get a target on your back that you do really well academically, there's 50 other kids that want you to fail. The minute you show that you're a good sportsman, there's 50 other children and families want you to fail. Nobody will come and say to you, let's build you up. Let's take your talent and nurture it and let's look after it. But it's rather easier to say to them, you're going to fail.
How many kids you have? You have
2.
daughters?
2, yeah. An 18-year-old and a 14-year-old.
8 and 14.
18 and 14.
Oh, okay. So what inspired that gap?
Well, I must
It
be
just
honest.
happened?
Yeah, it was, after my mother died, I got a little bit, it affected me quite a bit because we were quite close. So thinking back, I probably had my first daughter a bit too quick. We were married 1 year and we decided to try and have a child, and we had my first daughter. When she was born and all the complications that happened, I didn't want another child. I just, I thought we'd rather focus on the one child and provide for her because she's a special needs child. And then my wife just kind of twisted my arm and said, you know what, it's better to give her a sibling,
Just
and then we had my other daughter. So that's the gap kind of happened just as one of those things. I'd say it's more fate rather than a plan.
Okay. So, you spoke about, Tony the person, how you spend time after work, cycling, running, and really very sporty and healthy. Of that, do you spend time with your daughters individually, because it looks like they're different?
Yeah.
And just, connecting with them. You really sound like a true example of a family man.
Yeah, well, so my older daughter, or both of my daughters are very close to me. My older daughter more, I'm kind of her pillar of strength. So she's always, I've been here now, she's WhatsApped me about 10 times, asking me what time am I coming home. And so her and I are very close from that point of view. I think it's more like a solid foundation.
Okay.
The younger daughter, she happens to be sporty, so I run with her, I cycle with her, I'll sit and talk to her about sports. She's also got a very good business mind. I can see at a young age. I can see what type of subject she enjoys. So I teach her about the economy, I teach her about politics, I teach her about, if you look at supply and demand, I teach her about what drives interest rates, inflation. Because the other day she started doing it at school and she came and asked me. So I enjoy teaching her that type of stuff. I enjoy teaching her about business. And I think I've taught her that the one thing you've got to do in life is if you create a demand and you can satisfy the demand, you'll have a successful business. That's a simple thing about business in my mind. If you value your clients, you're honest, you create a demand and you satisfy the demand, it's simple. There's no other formula you really need. The rest of it in terms of management and staff, and that just comes with the game. But the basic concept of business, you create a demand, the demand happens and you get the supply. If you look at everything in the world, that's kind of what it's built up on. So that's what I've tried to teach you, is start thinking out of the box. Because if you look at school and university, what do they teach you to do? They teach you from the textbook and they teach you in the box. Okay, so that's why, to me, I look at the box and I say to everybody, okay, you get paid to be in the box. That's your job description, it's in a box. The minute you do something out of that box that adds value to the business, now you've been valuable to me. Now you're thinking out of the box, now I can reward you. But if you're going to hide away in the box, you're just a normal employee because you're doing your job, it's in the box, which is fine because 90% of people need that box. But the odd 10% is the ones that I try and identify. And I'm trying to teach my daughter to be that 10% that's not stuck in a box. So that's why I have these very high-level conversations with her. And it's not because I'm forcing it on her. She's interested in it. She loves business. She loves understanding business. She loves history. She came to me and told me they're learning about World War I. And she said, they were stuck in trenches for 6 months and they stopped fighting to celebrate Christmas together. They played soccer and they went back to their trenches afterwards and carried on in the war. I said to her, no, I do know that. So that for 14-year-old to come and tell you those things, for me, it's really pleasing for me because I can really see that different level of thinking.
So personality-wise, have they taken your personality with the mother, your daughters?
Sorry, you said?
Your daughters,
yeah.
Have they taken your personality or the mother?
Well, it's quite weird. I think it's a combination.
Oh, it's a good mix.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of the two.
Both
I think
of you.
My younger daughter is definitely my personality. My mother says that to her all the time. She says, you can see your father's child. Everything. It's and which is it's quite interesting because you get to see yourself in your children, and sometimes you don't like what you see, which is quite hard to digest. You know what I'm saying? Like I sit and say to her, where do you get this from? And my wife say you, and I'm like, okay, well.
It's like
Go, yeah, what you're saying.
So give us some examples there before maybe we share some stuff there.
Yeah.
What do you saw in your children that is Tony that you like? Damn.
Yeah, like I see sometimes this kind of this determination to, because you want something so badly, you tend to become insensitive. So you set such a high priority on goal achieving, whether it's sport or business, that you sometimes tend to become a bit insensitive to people around you. And I've seen that in my daughter. She'll come home and like my wife's trying to help her, and then she'll say things that are a bit hurtful and insensitive to my wife because she's focused on what she wants to do. And then, I called her back and said, just, we're trying to help you. Just calm down. I mean, we're the adults, we're trying to help you. So, and then like my wife said, but you do that. And then like, because she's so focused and driven by what you want to achieve, you tend to become a bit insensitive to who you may be tramping on to get there. So that's an example where I've kind of looked and I thought, geez, okay, well maybe I should try and change that in future. So it's taught me to be a little bit more gentle with people, and that people do think differently, because like with her sister, she doesn't really, sometimes she'll be a bit hard on her sister. And I called and I said to her, your sister's got certain difficulties, and yeah, but dad, this. And I said, no, just, and then I walk away and think, okay, well, I'm in the workplace. If somebody's struggling to understand something, maybe it's just cognitively that's the way they are. So let me just be a little bit gentle and explain to them. So it's been a big learning curve with things like that.
So in managing that trait in yourself, are you also trying to manage it within your daughter as well?
Yeah. The big difference there is you're talking about a 14-year-old girl that's got emotions and she hasn't lived life yet, so she knows everything right now. Where hopefully with a grown man, you're wise enough to kind of stop yourself and recorrect. So with children, right now she knows everything. And I'm saying to her, what you know is 10% of this whole world, so you got a long way to go. But that's what it is.
As long as she listens to you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, for now, we're quite blessed. She seems to me like quite a good child, but you never know what happens when you're not around. But we try and install the good morals and values in her. So and that's all you can do as a parent, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. So coming back to your career and everything, did you always find your where you are now, did you always see yourself being this from, let's say, from when you were in Eden Glen in school?
Well, I always knew I wanted to work for myself. So when I left, high school, I knew I wanted to work for myself. When I went to university, I said I want to work for myself. My goals initially were to be a stockbroker. Back in the day, that was a decent job. These days, it's kind of losing its way a bit.
What motivated the stockbroker?
Well, I just when you watch movies when you're younger and you dream, you had this vision, driving a convertible car, you're in a suit, you trading shares, you're making millions of dollars, and that was the dream. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to have this lavish lifestyle. I wanted to be able to buy what I want, to wear suits and ties and, close deals, and that was the dream. So, I kind of went to varsity thinking that's what I wanted to do. Job interviewed Alexander Forbes actually said that. They said, what's your, because, you always get asked what's your 5 and 10 year plan, which I can never understand that question. I think it's a textbook type of question, because 5 and 10 years, it's way too long. You can change in 6 weeks. So I got asked that question in 5 years, is where do you see yourself? I said, not sure. And I said, what? I said, I'm here to learn, and I want to open up my own business. Then they said, why should we employ you? I said, because in those 5 years, you're going to get probably the best work you're going to see. And I'm probably going to give you ideas and then move on. And I was there 4 years.
You'll probably see a flight risk. Can't you over-invest on this guy?
So I was, leave. I was there 4 years and left, and went into my own business. So that's exactly what, and I never lied. I told the truth when they interviewed me.
By the way, Tony's still wearing the suits. I don't know about the convertible. The shades. So,
So now you know where that comes from.
You always wanted to do it, like dreaming and all that. I dreamt about this too, but I'm not doing it yet.
Yeah, your convertible story was something else. So is the convertible pending, or you?
No, well, actually, I had a 330 convertible.
Okay.
I drove it. Does the trying to think back which one it was. It was a nice black one in 2007. I had it. That was still the flat 6. So they had that nice growling sound motor. Yeah. So I had that for about 2 years, and then, I got to learn a convertible you can only really use early in the morning or late in the afternoon. You know, in this sunshine, it gets way too hot. So, you know, after a while, I just thought, got it done. It's not appealing, so I just sold it.
Okay. So the reality wasn't as good as the dream.
You see why I'm not rushing into it.
But if it's a dream, you must do it. You
No.
know, I believe
He's already done this dream.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, the practicalities of a convertible are limited. And I mean, I remember traveling and being in Switzerland in the end of Jan, Feb. They wait for the sun to come and they put the roof down. They drive around the river. It's like, here, there's just too much sun. You don't have to wait.
Opposite.
Yeah. So, and I'm surprised. I mean, statistics tells that they sell more convertibles here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, just an illusion that you can use it. So when I was taking him to school, those early mornings, and it's like, damn, I can't wait for this to end. Grow up fast. I get into a proper job, and I will wake up and leave the house at 9 and put on my shades, put the roof down, go to work. So there again, I mean, once again, it's reality is something else. You know? I'm sure you've seen it with cars as well. You send it different messages as well. I mean,
it's kind of you know, that's the one thing my wife always says to me, you know, like, you want something so badly, and then when you tend to get it, I don't know, I'm a kind of person that doesn't show much emotion. So, you know, you work hard and you achieve achieve your dream, and then it's like, okay, so now I got the car, now what? You know, and then you enjoy it, but you always tend to find yourself not wanting more, but like when you get there, you didn't have the feeling that you thought you were going to have when you wanted it.
The dream is
You know,
always better than the reality.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, you know, even with business, like, you set yourself these goals, okay, and like, you know, like, I go for a client, and then I think, okay, how am I going to go and close this deal? I build up the presentation, build up my story, create the demand, put the insecurities in, then come with a big close, and then you close it and you walk away, and you think, okay, well, it's cool, now I got the client, okay, and then, you know, my wife was saying, well, learn to enjoy those moments, celebrate, you know, reward yourself, and that's something I've never been. I've never been a person. I've got my, you know, my wife often laughs and says to me, you kind of borderline autistic, because I'll focus on something, get it done, and that's it. You know, then there's nothing else. You know, I don't need to celebrate. I don't need to spoil myself. Kind of, that's it, and I carry on. You know, and so, and it's, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's difficult because you kind of don't find that you really, I don't know, that you really celebrate the goods. You know, and I think you got to do that. I think you got to celebrate things that mean a lot to you in your life. You know, but it's to find the ways to do it.
it's something I need to work on as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I do try to celebrate milestones, but maybe not so much in the most dramatic way. I'm, you know, very much as a hobby wine collector, interested in wines and all that. And I remember there's this champagne that's been sitting on ice forever, waiting for that big bang milestone to like pop it up and say, you know, and I've had a lot of milestones, but it's not been good enough for that champagne to get out and do it. It's like, you know, maybe take another vintage, and, you know, so I need to.
So you know what put it into perspective for me. So part of this whole COVID thing, one of my sister's sons, my nephew, was 38 years old. He'd been married for about, I don't know, probably 9 years, and he had 2 young sons. He died of COVID, and him and I were like brothers and best friends. We were really, really close. Yeah. But we enjoy KWV 10-year-old, the brandy. Yeah. And he had a bottle. I can't remember if it was a 5 liter but it's a massive bottle though.
Yeah, I remember that. And that 3 liter or something.
Or 3 liter, yeah. And he's got it in his bar. And I mean, he bought this bar for 2 years, and you know, he said to me, "We must sit down and have a drink." And we did have 1 or 2 drinks there, but we didn't enjoy it really, because it was very quick. And he said to me, one day on a special day, we'll open up this bottle, and it's never happened, you know. And the bottle's still there, you know. We go to his house once in a while, and you see the bottle. So I think, you know, and that's the message. He's like, you know what? There's never a right moment if you keep on moving the milestones, you know. So you got to just, you know, whatever it is, you set yourself a goal. You got to sit down, you got to open it and just enjoy it. You know.
Yeah, I need to improve on that. But I mean, you kind of not holding back. I know.
In what way?
Open up his bottles.
Not
I don't
bottles.
even open up these
Not bottles. Not my bottles. But I mean, just in the way that you see milestones and celebrate them. I mean, you don't have any bottles open yet. So, but
So tell me, how old are you?
I'm 28.
28.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, what do you see life? You still got, if I think when I was 28, I think I was in my business for 2 years. So I mean, for you now as a young person, I think that's you got an interesting story. You've met a lot of people on this show before, and so you must be learning quite a bit.
I am, and I think one of the biggest things I'm taking away from this is mainly mindset, because a lot of the people we interview on here, obviously they're very successful people. They've made it. They've got the title. On the outside looking in, they look like these very big, flashy people that have made it. But also, it's the mindset that goes with it. That's when you take away, you feel like, okay, there's value to this. Like how I agree with you about the whole work thing, and then how I also feel like if you're working until like 11 p.m. every day, it's just a scam, and you also agree with me on that. So I think the biggest takeaway for me is just to see how people in your guys' position or experience in life with business and all these things, how you think or your mindset, how it is at this stage of having gone through all these things. Because my dad will say, if I was your age right now and I had all the knowledge that I had, I'd be doing all these big things. And I'm like, yeah, cool, Dad, but you're not 28, and I'm not your age where I have all these experiences and all this knowledge that you've picked up through all your experiences. So it's like, if it's like, okay, cool, but like, what is the reality now, and how do we move forward? So that's what I'm saying, picking up and realizing the mindset that you guys have without having to go through all these experiences and all these years, only to realize later in life saying, hang on, I should have done all this when I was this age.
I think you're very right in that. And I think if you look back, I was actually talking about it at the office today. If you look at life, I mean, if you look at the 80s and 90s, technology hadn't improved that fast.
It didn't.
But from early thousands to now, technology's just gone like you can't believe.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's consistent is people's determination and willpower.
Yeah.
No matter how much AI comes out and no matter how much technology improves, if you've got the right mentality and the right willpower, I believe you can achieve whatever you set your mind to. And that's where the belief comes into it. So for me, as times change, and you're saying, but you're not 28, and you've got all this experience, and time will change that, in my view. But the thing is, you need to have the determination.
Yeah.
You need to set your goal, what you want, and just be driven for that goal.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Also, another thing that we spoke about is just being intentional about the things you want to do. It's another thing that I forgot his name, but it was the man when we interviewed. He talked about he was the coach for Chiefs, the medical person for Chiefs.
Oh, Dr. Bengu.
Yes, Dr. Bengu. So, and you were very intentional, saying everything he's done was very intentional to get to the point he is at.
Yeah, I remember that. That's a very powerful story. But I think Tony's question to you is, in the uniqueness that you get, the information that is almost exclusive, because in real life, to talk to Tony like this, they will make appointment, tell us 10 reasons why you want to see him, he'll see you next year, you say stuff that he doesn't want to see me, and then you stop. But now, this platform has created the opportunity to talk to people like Tony as if they're family, they're friends, and they share their stories, which also relates to, it's very unique for you. That's why I kept on saying, if I had a podcast when I was 26, 27, and have all this experience to demystify people like Tony, because the one big question that we ask Tony here is how your staff members and people perceive you, because when they look at you, you look like a very strict person. You look like you need to get your story together before you talk to Tony. Which may not be true, but that's I think about at work when people saying sometimes they feel like they're going into a principal's office to come to my office. It's like, and yet I'm the coolest guy on the planet.
But
At least that's how I see myself. But and don't forget what you're going to say. The big thing for us has been trying to, and for you, try to demystify the CEO, the leader, and say, look, like anybody else, whether you CEO of a big firm or small firm, you done the work. You worked hard. You ate your vegetables. You went to church. You went to school. You did the garden. You, like everybody else, you can't skip those things. It's just not having superpowers to make it. Sorry.
No, you're right. And I think just to add on to that, I think the nuts and bolts to what you're saying there is 100% correct. But you understand, as leaders and as of businesses, and you get to work in the morning. My morning starts up where I walk in and I've got things in my mind that I need to do, and I'm focused on what I need to do. So sometimes I'm not saying that it's correct, okay? Because I've got an employee now that's pointed this out to me. A lot of them wouldn't say that to me before, because you're right. The view that I'm very strict. I run things like this. It's direct. I don't have time for nonsense. I'm insensitive to people's feelings. Those are all things that I've been told over the years because I've got a goal and I want the business to go from X to Z, and that's my plan. And whatever happens along the way, it doesn't matter. But I'm not a person like that. But I've had one employee that over the last couple of years has started telling me these things. And I laugh because she said to me, the previous business, we had a lot more staff. She said, like in the morning when I would get there, because I'd get there first, and I'd be sitting working. Now I've got open plans. So I don't sit in an office. I sit with all my staff because I believe that's how you teach them. That's how I can listen to what they're doing, what they're saying, help them. I can educate in the right way. I can give them pointers. And I'm sitting there, and she said to me, when they would walk in, they would all look at me and see what mood I'm in to decide if they should talk to me or not. So when I would come to work the odd day late and I went to a meeting first or whatever, I'd be so focused on what I need to do that I'd walk in and I'd sometimes forget to say hello. Okay. Now the office is majority woman. Okay. And I mean, you don't think about this. I walk in there and I'm thinking, I've got to do this. I've got this. There's a client waiting for me. This guy's phoned me. I've got to go and present this option tomorrow. And you'd walk in and like go and sit down unintentionally. I'd sit down, open up my computer, start working. And then I would get the one walk up to me and say, have I done something wrong? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, no, you didn't say hello to me. And I'm like, okay, I made a mistake, sorry. Then I started learning that, you know what, you get sensitive people, and even though you got to get out of your comfort zone. So you got to sometimes just say it's not all about you and what you want to achieve, and just kind of put a pause to it and walk in and say, good morning, everyone. So what I learned over the years is like managing people differently. And I learned that in the last 9 years in particular. So you might be a totally different person to your dad. So if I'm managing the two of you, if you're a person I know that needs to be told what to do, at what time you need to do it, what you need to do this day, then I need to manage you like that, and I'll get the best out of you, because that's the way you work. Where if I just say to your dad, here's a list of things, go get it done, and you need to get it done before the end of the week. And he goes and he does it, and I can leave him alone. So I started learning that people are different. You've got to manage different people in different circumstances. And not everybody can be fit into one box. Now, it sounds simple, but when you first, at a young age, and you take over a business, you don't realize that. Yeah. You think, well, it's my way, and I'm going to manage them according to the way I think they should be managed. But you can't change a person. What you think and how you work, people don't work like that. Especially for me, I've got a very different style of working, and not a lot of people can mimic what I do. So I started learning, look, they're doing things a little bit differently, but the end result's what I want. Yeah. And I think to me, that's what I've learned. As long as the end result is what I desired and what they desired, and the client's happy, then it doesn't matter how they get there, as long as they get there within the turnaround time. So, and that to me, that was a massive learning curve for me.
Yeah. I mean, also, what I've learned talking to people like you, Tony, many stories of leaders who came on off the clock has been really trusting the process and having to do it. If I think about maybe just to quote Jacob Leaf, the story of Ubuntu Pathway, I met Jacob when he was in 2006, and then the next meeting he showed up with Jordan Levy, Jordan, his friend, who they met in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And Jordan made his life dream to follow Jacob wherever he goes, which is crazy, right? A grown man to follow another grown man wherever he goes. And even the day that we interviewed them in that room, uh, uh, Jordan was still with Jakes, and Jakes started this big NGO in PE, American guy who came here 25 years ago, and started this thing. And it just seemed to work. Like they married, they got kids, but whatever you're gonna do, Tony, I'm part of it.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
that's very rare. It's
that's
very,
like, and I mean, there's just many stories that like realize that in life, you actually don't know until you know. But trust the process.
Yeah.
Do the basics. Do what you have to do, and keep going. Trust your belief, and going into that. Very much similar to my story. I mean, I've always kind of driven by making the impact. You know,
Yeah.
being a fireman, making the difference, and all that. And when you grow up, you go into the business. Then that start taking shape in business. What it looks like to make business in terms of making things accessible. Reaching people and getting things going. Type of a thing. So
yeah, I think in line with what you're saying about those processes, the one thing, and it's difficult when you open up a business because like I've always got this view: don't chase money. Okay, I believe if you do the right thing and you do the right thing for a client, money will come. But no, it's very conflicting because when you open up a business, you generally don't have any money. Okay, so you need to chase money to live and to keep your business going. Otherwise, you're gonna not be able to survive. So you tend to find yourself. It almost gets tempting to skew your morals and values and why you got into the business because you need that money. But
Yeah.
I've always, like even with my wife's school, I said to her, don't worry about making money. Do the right thing. The right children will come into your school and the money will come in. And I've always had the philosophy, if you service clients the right way, if you look out for a client and you really care and you're passionate about what you do for the higher purpose of why you're in your business, okay? Like our business is retirement planning, okay?
Yeah.
If you focus on delivering messages to clients to help them retire comfortably, and you really believe in what you're doing and you're helping them out, people will trust you and you'll get business. But if you're there just chasing commissions and fees, you're going to give people wrong advice. It's the same as any company that you go into. If you're just going to be there and sell product to make money, but if you believe in your product, that your product's making a difference, people will see that and give you money, give you business. So that's it's almost like we were just saying about this gentleman talking about now, where he said, I'm going to follow you for the rest of my life, okay, or the rest of my career. He believed in that person. He believed in that person's doing the right thing and he followed him.
Yeah.
And that's why those things work. That's what businesses work. If you look at every business that started, if you look right back at the beginning, okay, they started with that purpose in mind, was to make a difference in people. I mean, you look at the McDonald's story. You look at these pharmaceutical businesses when they first start, not the massive empires they become, but they start to make a difference and help people. And those people, that's why it's often hard to transfer that passion into the next generation of leaders that take over the business. And that's how often you find when a company gets bigger and bigger, the people that come in there and the business created 100 years ago, they don't have the same philosophy.
Yeah.
They're there to drive shareholder value, to drive dividends, to drive wealth. They're not there to make a difference anymore because they forgot why the business was started. Now,
Yeah.
that is a challenge. How do you get that philosophy down into businesses that come up?
Yeah.
And that to me has been the toughest thing is when I see businesses out there that have lost their way, but they still make a fortune of money, but they forgot why they opened up.
Yeah, but I mean, also comes down to what you said earlier in the beginning, where you're saying, business is simple. You just it's a demand and supply.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about, I think last week at the chair you're sitting at, there was the CEO of Yum KFC, another brand, McDonald's, another brand that started like 50 years, 100 years plus. Food was different then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, they in essence, all of them are still serving the same thing.
Yeah.
Chicken with the same spice and recipe, which I don't want to attack anybody, but they've evolved by adding on products, adjacent things around it, and make it spicy jalapeno, like
They made a
everything
whole
else,
menu,
and
basically.
just evolve with time. I mean, like we do, I think, as people, as individuals, and I think companies almost like they're human beings, right? It's just adapting and doing that.
And that's the pleasing thing, to see businesses like that carry on with that initial goal. And it's a massive challenge. I mean, I've seen it when you employ staff. To try and get staff to have the same culture as you as a business leader, it's the toughest thing, because it's tough to change an attitude. Attitude to me is the most important thing. When I employ people, I look at credentials, but to me, attitude. If you're a teachable person and you've got the right attitude, you can do everything with it. You can have 7 degrees, but you've got the worst attitude. That means nothing, in my view. But if you've got the right attitude, you can do so much with the right attitude.
I mean, for me, that's why, I'm so big on people and young graduates. When you get people from university, varsity, fresh, and really indoctrinate very good business processes, values, ideas, and create a very strong foundation for them to stand. I mean, what you're talking about is somebody who's like, spoiled or destroyed somewhere else and come into your business when they all over the shore, and you have to bring them back and center them, which is hard.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard. But you can see a change. I mean, I've employed some people that, when they first came to me, I employed them more on the attitude that I saw the eagerness to learn. And I could see within a month that what they've trained and been taught before is not appropriate for my business. And it won't be appropriate for my clients. And I've sat down and gradually changed those attitude and changed those opinions, and getting to understand that what you present to a client is your product. We don't sell anything. Because I get up, I leave a client. You don't have anything. You don't have a car. You don't have a burger. You don't have a pair of pants. So what we sell is trust and advice. And the way you package that and the way you make the client feel when you're talking to them is what's going to make the difference. Okay, and that's what I try and teach my staff, to say, when you're sending out a pack or you're sending out something, if you're going to use massive words that are going to complicate things and confuse people, they're not going to have the trust in you. If you keep it simple and you're to the point and the person understands what they're looking at, they'll trust you. To change that mindset, and I've done that with a few people in my career before. To me, that's the hardest thing, and not everybody is up to it, and they end up leaving, which is fine, because you can't please everybody. But there are people that stick around. I mean, I've got a guy now. His name's Jackson Mayakisa, that worked with me at the previous company. I mean, I took this guy in 12 years ago. He was 1 year in the industry in short term, and I saw a good attitude, but really lost. And took him in, trained him, and, he came in as a low-level underwriter, which is a really low-level job. Now he's an account executive and he's managing 7 people, and he still phones me. He still sends stuff to me. I check for him. I guide him. The other day, I wanted to have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. He phoned me for a few pointers, and that all comes from attitude. He could have said, you know what, this guy's talking rubbish. I'm not going to listen to him, and walk away. But he didn't. He sat and he said, I want to learn from you. I believe that what you do is fantastic. I believe the way you talk to clients, the way you're so passionate about looking after people's assets. I want to also be like that. Because that's what we do. We're insuring people's lives. We're insuring buildings. We're looking after people's livelihoods. Somebody works the whole life. You don't want a building to burn and you don't get it paid out. That's their wealth. So, and that's the message I started portraying him. And he had the right attitude to learn and say, okay, I'm going to use this. And look how it's helped him. I mean, when 90% of people think, I just want to get paid from Tony. I want to go home. If I get a 50 Rand increase from another company, I'll leave. That's not the bigger picture. That's not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, what are you going to empower yourself with? How much knowledge am I getting from this person that's done it? And that for you as a young person is the key to learn out of these sessions.
Yeah. So that people investment that basically you've been talking about this whole time, what has it taught you so far? And I know, probably from the beginning of your journey, from realizing I need to invest more into my people so I can get the best out of my people, what has changed from you, the beginning of that journey, to now where you are, I know how to handle it and how to invest.
It's interesting. You ask a lot of valid questions. You can see you've done this a long time.
It's almost my job.
So when you're younger and you're talking 26 years old and you open up your own business, and people think, what do you know? I find successful businessmen enjoyed that, because they thought, just this young guy that's going to open up a business. Because if you look at it, most people open up their own businesses in their late 40s. Okay, you've learned enough, you've built up a network, you can go and tap into that network. So when you're 26, I look at you and I think, geez, you're a little baby. I mean, my daughter and my son are older than you, and you want to advise me on my 200 million pension fund. Okay. So you tend to find you become a lot more aggressive in what you want. So you don't really look at people as are necessary.
Yeah.
You get the opinion, well, if you leave, I don't need you. I can carry on myself. That's when you're growing up because it's all you. You driving the business, you are the business. As you get older and you start growing and you need to delegate and you need trustworthy people, you start realizing that your business is only as good as the people you got in your business. That's when you start learning to build up people and trust people and empower people. And, you can see people, then if they're empowered and they trust you and they value what you do, they're going to stay with you. And what it allows you to do then is to grow your business. And that's the important part, because you need the right people to believe in you and trust your process, like you were saying, and then your business, you can effectively take your business and replicate it a number of times. And that's when you create a big business. So I learned that through trial and error and through just the natural flow of business, in realizing that the bigger you get, you need to trust people and empower them. And your business is going to escalate, and you get longevity, you get trustworthiness in your staff. And that to me is it's all learned through basically just sticking it out and learning over a number of years. Like I said, the first 2 years were tough because I was chasing a business growth because I needed growth. People were initially, I saw, if you didn't do things my way and you didn't fit into what I was doing, you must leave. Then I started learning, what, you need people, you can teach them, they can become an extension of you. And I often laugh because in my kind of younger 30s, I would tell people, I want to clone Tony. If I had 5 of me running around, my business would be 5 times the size. Then I started learning you can't clone yourself, but you can teach people and empower them to become almost like you, if you believe in what you're doing. So that's when I started realizing the idea is to just try and mimic what happened and try and learn and teach people. And then the better you get that and the more value they add in your life, you empower them and you get a successful business model then. And that hasn't really, probably a lot of textbooks will disagree with me, but that's just learned through experience.
Yes, plus also the benefit of not having another clone of you is that other person will bring either different ideas or new perspectives.
Exactly.
What you're trying to do.
Because imagine your 5 of me would be fighting all the time with each other.
Exactly. The whole insensitive problem would.
So, and I learned that through, and that you can't teach that. What I'm telling you now, like how I figured it out. No textbook's going to say to you, just be patient, invest in people, because you got your own personality, right? You got your own frustrations, your own aggression, your own calmness. So you can read up as much as people tell you, but your impulsivity when you're younger is totally different than when you get close to your 50s. When you're 26 and you're building a business and you're in desperate measures and you want to feed your wife and your children, you look at life totally differently than when you're established and you're calm and you start investing in people. And so it's also circumstance and age. And that to me is when I learned it. And I'd say kind of in my mid-30s I started realizing that. Especially when I got to my 40s I started realizing, you got to be soft with people, empower them, train them, teach them in the right way, and people take to you. But when you're younger, you don't think that.
So if, let's say the 26-year-old self, yourself when you were 26, like you were able to have this conversation with him and impart this knowledge, and he fully understood what you were saying and was like, okay, cool. What do you think would have changed in those earlier years?
I think I would have a much bigger business.
Much bigger.
Really, I think I'd have a much bigger business. I think I would, I would kind of, and not that I want a bigger business, because I've never really wanted to be part of a massive business, but I think I would have a really well-established business in terms of employing the right people, getting the right value and message out there. I think it would be an example of what businesses aspire to. Because you can take a person that's young, you can train them, you can teach them, people wouldn't leave. I mean, I've had staff since I kind of turned over the forest and became a new person in business. I've had staff work with me 13, 14, 15 years. And that says a lot, because I've taken staff from PAs to accounts executives looking after portfolios. And that's the kind of business that I would have had. Instead, my first 10 years, I was very aggressive and I was just wanted to succeed at all costs. I was just, to me, the most important thing was going out, closing the deal, putting the books, moving on. And that's part of growth, and so if I'd see myself, I'd say, listen, just slow down a bit. Learn to talk to people, invest in people. You get a bigger business through people thinking like you, going out there, selling. You'd learn more from other people in your business. You then get a meaningful business, because it's not just about you driving the ship. It's about having people you trust that will get you there. But fortunately, I only learn that when you get a bit older and wiser and more grey.
It's like the saying where they say, if you want to get somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to get somewhere, or if you want to go far, you must take other people with you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Another thing about when you get people that you trust and in the business and you've looked after them and they're learning to understand the business, it also gives you time to go away. You need time to take a break. You need time to distance yourself from the business. But if you're the whole business, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because then you are the business.
Starts and stops with you.
That's it.
Very true. So, I mean, Tony, as we try to kind of conclude and go to the end, we'd like to afford you an opportunity to ask us a few questions. I see you started with him already, and some parting shots.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting in this dynamic. I mean, you've got two of you in the same. I mean, you father and son. So you obviously a lot older and wiser than, even though he doesn't like to hear that, but that's the case. So I kind of got an idea of him as a 28-year-old, where how he looks at life. But I think for someone that is a bit older than me, so what does life get to like when you're in your stage? If you had to give me advice as a person that's your junior, what would you say to me as you're approaching kind of your age?
Wow, what a question. I mean, I think, my life philosophy is quite a different. I'm generally a very calm person, and I'm very much, believe in impact, in also access and sharing knowledge and experience. You'll find that I connect a lot of people. I like, a networker. I like very interested in knowing people's stories and how they go. And there's no one size fit all. And a lot of times you're in the kind of a retirement business. A lot of people say, I want to make a lot of money now and retire. And you realize that actually making a lot of money can be boring because you don't have challenges and stuff to do. And retiring, when you get to retirement, you don't want to retire because life is starting to be exciting. So
I think there what you said now is the kind of sometimes it's kind of sometimes the uncertainty of life that's a question that I've got. Is that like now I look at myself and say, okay, I'll turn 50 next year. Okay. And I'm thinking, how long do I want to do this for? Do I want to be involved in business for another 5 years and then kind of ease off and retire? Or do I want to continue? And that's kind of the crossroads where I find myself right now, where the future is very uncertain from that point of view. And so what you said there, I can really kind of relate in that sense, because I get to a stage where I think, okay, how long am I going to do this for? Am I going to do it till I'm 60, till I'm 65? Do I want to work forever? Do I want to slow down? And that I think a lot of people need help with that kind of process. When you're in your young 50s and you feel that you've made life, you've made life what you want it to be.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, 50 in this world of longevity, I mean, people live until 100 now. Yeah. Look at Warren Buffett. He's still in it. And I think what keeps him fit and strong and alive is cutting those deals, the shares growing and all that, and just living that life. I mean, I think my advice to you, I mean, you got so much to offer the world at 50, at 60, even 70. Don't take that information and knowledge and put it to sleep. Don't be selfish. I think you'll be selfish if you do that, because the thing is, I mean, as you get older, you get wiser, you got so much to offer. The crossroads will always be there.
Yeah.
Every year, there's a crossroads to say, do I continue straight? Do I go right or left? Or do I kind of pause and figure it out?
Yeah.
They'll always be there. The fact of the matter is, now you've got so much to offer to your children, to the industry, to people like us, everybody else. You're supposed to be using that knowledge to explode and grow. Of course, I mean, you need to keep the work-life balance in a way that you do more of the things that you like, the cycling, the running and all that, and the working. So a very clear 50-50, because you can afford it, you can do it. If you're young, 28, 30, building the business, you can't afford to leave work in a lot of times. Sometimes you want to leave, the boss says, I've got an extra project for you, which probably will improve you and help you. If you say no to it, you're going to be left out to, nice projects.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if you're 50 and, having a Porsche convertible, bike that you don't want anymore, and holiday home and all those things, you kind of can manage that. But that's when I think you should be, giving more of that knowledge that you got over time. Like what we said off record, writing a book, because that stuff that you have, it shouldn't just sit in Tony's head. You need to put it out there. Your kids read it, the friends and everybody else to see the story it's because it's inspiring. You may not think that it's inspiring because it's your story. I think it's inspiring. If I listen to all the stories, I think it's powerful. So that's all I can say what I've seen, because when I talk to young people all the time, I mean, one of the things that I do is I support an NGO in Braamfontein that helps young girls to get into film, photography and journalism. When they listen to my story, they say, "Wow." And he listens to my story, he says, "No, that's regular." So
it's like first time hearing the story versus I've heard the story, like, I don't know, so many times before the age of 15. So it's like,
I think you're right though. I think in terms of, to me, it's just everyday life. I kind of think of all these things that have happened and businesses that we built and, school that we created. And I think it's common. So, so I don't feel that people want to listen to that. I feel it's boring. That's why I've never really gone into depth on those stories. It's kind of just there, and my wife knows about it, but that's why we've just kind of kept it to ourselves and put my head down and carry on working.
No, I don't think you should. I mean, coming here on short sleeve shirts in the middle of winter from Lebanon and literally starting from ground zero and building up business based on self-belief, values and morals that are really hardworking and driving what you want. That's rare stuff. A lot of people in this environment today, they're very demanding. Where's my this? Where's my that? As opposed to creating that. So that type of story creates a aha moment, a wake up call to say, look, I can do that. And that's why for you, I think just demystify people like him and say, look, you can do this for yourself. You don't have to be so and so.
That's what I was getting at when I asked there.
Yeah. So
Great.
I hope I answered your question.
No, thank you. I think it's definitely. I just got to learn to maybe just put it out there more.
Exactly.
So great. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I don't know if you have some parting shots before we close.
No, other than thank you for sharing your story with us, your philosophy, your mentality, and everything you shared with us. Just like my dad said, those things are valuable for me, for anyone else who's listening. You never know how it might impact someone else.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
No, pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah, great. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Man.
Thank you very much.
Cameraman, thank you.